and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nashin Bukhari, bringing you the latest and most exciting entertainment news from showbiz world. In today's episode, we will discuss how TV has utterly failed the disabled people, according to the writer Jack Thorne, followed by a movie review. But first things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Marvel, Sony race to remove Spider-Man No Way Home online leak. TV has utterly failed disabled people, writer Jack Thorne says. Ed Sheeran challenging himself for #1 single with Visiting Hours. Ryan Reynolds' Free Guy is at the top of North American box office once again. And Succession Season 3 will debut in October. And now moving to our top story of the day. Acclaimed screenwriter Jack Thorne has slammed the industry for its treatment of differently abled people, both on and off screen, saying TV has failed disabled people utterly and totally. To have further discussion on the subject, we are joined entertainment journalist Jamie Body. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Jamie, this is alarming and sad to learn that there is still a lot of need to be worked on in order to create space for differently abled people on TV. But the question is, how could that be neglected and ignored so easily for such a long time?
Yeah, a lot of shows are being more progressive and including people with disabilities. So sometimes I think people may see a show with someone in, for instance, Glee had a member, an actor in the wheelchair, they had a cheerleader with Down syndrome. So you think, oh great, there's disability on TV. But actually, when you isolate that show, that's one show out of hundreds that actually showcase that and celebrate the talent of people who with disabilities. So I think it's a case of almost taking the blinkers off and then looking at every genre, every channel and being like, right, who are we getting into that audition room? Who are we getting on our screen? So then the audience see it, and it takes away that stigma that people may associate with disabilities.
True. And Thorne revealed that although he had always pledged to further disabled people's cause in his own writing, he felt he also himself had failed because the TV world is tagged against the telling of disabled stories with disabled talent, and that has to change. How would you comment on that? I mean, how that change is possible?
It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle to start with, I think, because going back to what I said earlier, there is this stigma with disability, whether they feel people can't produce the same amount of talent or skill, which is completely wrong. We know there are so many talented artists, creatives out there who do have a disability. Some disabilities are more visual, some are silent disabilities. And I think it goes down to actually quite granularly into where are they training? How do we get those people into the room? Because I understand in the world of acting, you want the best person to get the role, who does the best audition, but are the right people getting into the audition room? So maybe it's more of an education with casting directors and agents, or getting them to cast their net wider when they're actually trying to look and find talent.
Correct. And Jamie, Thorne called disability has been a forgotten diversity, the one everyone leaves out of speeches, and reminded TV makers of their responsibilities to this sector of society, particularly after the COVID pandemic, when he said that disabled people were left to die. Do you agree with this, and what are your thoughts on this statement by Thorne?
I think, yeah, as an overall statement, when you think of diversity and inclusion, there's a big push on gender equality with the pay scale. Even though there are still gaps, they are making big pushes. Same with ethnic minorities, sexual orientation, but disabilities do seem to be lower on that priority list. And again, I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe because people don't see it as much when it comes to TV or comes to the interview or audition panel. But it does seem to be a lot lower on the pecking order. So therefore, trying to get that onto the same playing field as all these other areas of inclusion will be a tougher challenge.
And also he quoted the Creative Diversity Network calculation that with current targets set by broadcasters, it will take until 2041 for disability in off-screen roles to reflect the makeup of the UK. Now, why does this seem so hard to be done in the industry? And it's not about TV, it's in the film industry as well.
I think also in an age, in 2021, when you can literally order something for next day delivery or book a flight to go to the other side of the world within like 2 days, it seems 2041, it seems such a long distance when we're in this era of I can achieve this now. But it's going back to those grassroots and kind of installing it in companies' values, in their identity, and also giving people the courage to come forward. Everyone wants to see themselves when they are on TV. They want that inclusion. And whether you get that escapism through music, theatre, TV, print, you want to see yourself or someone like you. So at the moment, the lack of disability and actors with disabilities is probably holding a lot of people back who have those dreams of being in the creative industry.
True. And Jamie, we have also witnessed in the past that actors who met disabilities and health issues like Parkinson's disease, I'm exclusively referring to Michael J. Fox, just we were discussing off camera a few minutes ago, he had to call it a quit because he saw that there is no possibility for him to exist in the industry, let alone excel. So in your opinion, how this part of diversity can be revived in the film industry exclusively?
Yeah, and I think, as you said, with Michael J. Fox, he was at the peak of his career in that like 80s films. And then, although now he is back on our screens, that we saw him in a couple episodes of like Designated Survivor and The Good Wife, to kind of, his trajectory was really thrown off by the way he was treated and the way he was received, and maybe what people portray a Hollywood star or the Hollywood star to be. And the same even with Selma Blair. She's come forward recently with her MS and how, again, she has done so well in her career. And I think also it's not necessarily even just Hollywood treating them differently, it's them, it's that mindset change. So I think it's also the education on how can you manage or work with your disability when maybe you're starting out in your career already in a long established career, because unfortunately disabilities come in many different forms. And so whether that's through injury, sickness, how do people cope with that and break through those boundaries?
Absolutely. On the other hand, RJ Mitt of Breaking Bad busted stereotypes about cerebral palsy when he himself is a patient of cerebral palsy. But he did an entire series of Breaking Bad, which means if given a proper quota for this diversity, the artists with disabilities can do wonders, especially when it is not made about their disability on the TV, but rather about their talent that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've said, it's not ticking that box to be like, oh, we've got a disabled actor or actress. It's we've got an actor or we've got an actress. Yes, they have a disability, and it's not hindering their role at all. They are still producing their talent. They can still keep up with the workload. They're human beings still. They're just as talented as everyone else who got that role. And as you said there, it's not kind of that virtue signaling of, yes, let's get a disabled writer in or a disabled actor or disabled makeup artist. We're just getting a writer in, we're just getting a makeup artist in. They have the skills. The disability is just something that they happen to bring with them, but it doesn't hinder their work when it's not, they are not defined by their disability.
And Jack Thorne also demanded that producers stop worrying about characters and casts being too disabled and realize instead that such stories had a clear resonance with the audience. What is your take on that?
Yeah, completely. It's for those, that next generation watching these TV shows, is to be like, whether they are disabled themselves or not, to then see it and be like, yep, they can live their lives, they can achieve their dreams, even within the case of a story of a TV show or a film, seeing someone in a wheelchair and in the school they're at, they have wheelchair ramps, things like that. So I think it's, as Jack was saying there, not ticking that box, thinking, yes, let's get that disabled person in. That's an afterthought almost. It's bringing them in their talent. So it inspires the next generation to keep pushing those boundaries.
Right. And Jamie, Thorne's upcoming projects include BBC's factual drama Independence Day, How Disabled Rights Were Won. It's the working title. Do you think such moves will make a reasonable difference?
I think one of the many things that's happened in the COVID world is people are watching a lot more documentaries. They are staying at home because we had to. So I think documentaries have really become such an educational source. People aren't just relying on maybe the news feed they see on Facebook and things like that. So I'm hoping this documentary does really resonate with a lot of people, whether they are disabled themselves, know someone who's disabled, or even if they don't, just to kind of educate themselves so they know how to treat someone if they see them at work, or if they are themselves in the creative industries, to work out how can we really break this mold so it is inclusive and reflective of everyone.
Right. Jamie, this has also been observed that when it comes to making movies, documentaries, films, and whatnot about disabled people, there is a tone of patronization for them. Whereas I think if somebody who is dealing with the disease is included in the storyboard or the creation of that movie, that is going to make a difference. But normally we have seen that normal people, they design the entire concept for a disabled person. So how would you think about balancing this entire move, about creating something that is for the disabled people and not making it a tone going towards patronization for them?
I think a lot of people, whether they mean to or not, approach things kind of with their own unconscious bias or what they think, what their model of the world is and how they see that, whether it comes to disability, orientation, ageism. And people will have their own perceptions of that. So I think it is a case of getting that broader spectrum of people in the room, starting off, as you said, with the writers, the creative team, the casting team, the actors. And then also even when they do their market research and put it out for their test crowds, it's making sure that it actually does reflect the true world now. And because of social media and online, we can Google something, we can fact check really quickly. So it's better to invest the time going into something to avoid dealing with the backlash and the repercussions of someone letting their naivety get ahead of them, instead of thinking, no, actually, let's take a beat. Let me check out. Let me reach out to that expert. Let me reach out to someone who is disabled, or have we actually seen everyone who is right for this role?
Right. Jamie, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Jamie Body, and now moving to other story details of the day. Fans were not ready when they came across a leaked glimpse of Spider-Man No Way Home. After pushing Marvel for months to give a glimpse, many were surprised when they found a leaked trailer online before its official release. Marvel and Sony scrambled to remove the leak before it went viral. Following the alleged leak, many fans were quick to make light of the situation as they dragged the movie's lead actor Tom Holland into the mix. Ed Sheeran is challenging himself for the top spot as his new track, Visiting Hours, is on course to be this week's highest new entry on the official singles chart, currently at number 3 on the official chart First Look. The song was released last Thursday on August 19 in line with the announcement of his new album Equals. Ed's current number 1, Bad Habits, remains in pole position, followed by The Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber's Tay. Sci-fi comedy Free Guy slipped but did not trip over the weekend as it clung to the top spot in North American movie theaters with a haul of $18.5 million. Industry Watcher Exhibitor Relations were reported. The film, its release delayed a year by the COVID-19 pandemic, is a lighthearted yarn starring Ryan Reynolds. Family-friendly Free Guy was off from its $28 million opening weekend, but the analyst said it was a good result and impressive in COVID-19 situation. The mega money and major family drama of Succession will return for its next chapter this fall. The network announced on Twitter that the Emmy-winning hit will debut in October. There is no exact date yet, while a trailer was released last month. And that is it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's review time, and in this segment, we will review The Theory of Everything. Stephen Hawking, an excellent astrophysics student on his research, learns that he suffers from motor neuron disease and has around 2 years to live. Directed by James Marsh, The Theory of Everything won Oscar for Best Actor and Golden Globe for Best Original Score. To review the movie, we are joined by TV presenter Jean Paul. Jean, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Nasheen. Lovely to be here and to review such a wonderful, masterful film.
Absolutely. It's such a great day to review this movie, The Theory of Everything. It's not just a story about the science behind the beginnings of our universe, but the science of love and how life changes that we face every day.
Yeah, I think the thing is, a lot of people who don't know much about science, knowing it's about Stephen Hawking, might have thought it might be a difficult film to watch, but you're right. Very much like Rocky, the very first film, Rocky, from Sylvester Stallone, was not really a film about boxing. It was a film about love.
Yes.
And The Theory of Everything, I think, very similar concept. It's very much about love.
Absolutely. And how did you find the gradual growth of the story while watching this movie?
I knew a bit about Stephen Hawking before I watched the film. So, to be honest, I found the film to be a bit light on the science and more about him as a character and also the characters around him. But the way the story developed made you feel quite sad.
Yeah.
You know, when you think that he was a young man and he was affected by that disease quite early on in his life. It developed into a bit of a sad film, I think, throughout, and then it sort of peaked later on. But as you went through the film, it was a little bit, it did get you a little bit emotionally.
Absolutely. And Jean, I would like you to comment on Eddie's remarkable performance in this movie that won him an Oscar for Best Lead Actor.
Well, his performance, I think, yeah, he certainly did deserve the award because, you know, his performance was very much about showing from the very first time his face sort of slapped onto the concrete, showing how a progressive illness can affect and attack your body. And a normal person would struggle, but he was showing that someone who's got talent, someone who's got intelligence, someone who's already in a relationship, is now being affected on all those levels. And to be able to act that out and to be able to also show the one line which must remain intact throughout the film, which is hope. That is really what the film is about, hope, no matter what circumstances. To be able to show that convincingly, I think he did a magnificent, it was a magnificent performance.
Right. And now coming to Jane's role, which is beautifully performed by Felicity Jones. How did you see her character developing throughout the movie?
Well, I think the thing about Jane is that she showed that sort of, she depicted, because don't forget, this is sort of from an early time in our history as far as the timeline. It's pre sort of like before feminism and that kind of stuff. So she showed a traditional sort of supportive role in being a wife and, you know, someone who wants to support you through this, while also showing the challenges that she felt sort of putting her own career on hold, because she was a professional as well. She had her own thesis. So I think she showed that very well, between compromise between supporting him, Stephen, and also trying to sort of like come to terms with not being able to work on her own professional work. So she did choose him, you know, and I think she depicted that really well. That supportive role, she depicted it really well. It's not easy, but she made that choice and she showed that really well, I think.
Right. And John, I would like you to comment that although the movie only features events up until the publication of Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time, that was a bestseller, do you think it would have been an added bonus had the events after the bestseller been included as well?
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of things about Stephen Hawking's that are really interesting. I don't know that people know, like, for example, not accepting the knighthood from the Queen. You know, someone offers you a knighthood, you take it, but he refused to accept it. Also, events after that where he then talked about theology and the existence of God.
Yes.
In his last book. You know, talking about the rise of machines and artificial intelligence, very much like Terminator, being involved in the Big Bang Theory, being involved in, he was actually involved in a scandal, going to a strip club. So there's lots of stuff. He's a very, very full character, Stephen Hawking. And I think that much could have been made about post that period as well, because, you know, he was quite a figure. He was quite an interesting figure.
Right. And Jean, of course, it is a very slow-paced movie, but the story, depiction, setting, and tone, all of this make The Theory of Everything a very interesting biopic to watch. From a production angle, what interesting elements do you see in this movie?
From the production perspective, I think there's a number of things. Technically, you've got the fact that people who can't move, you know, who are physically incapacitated, are on screen portrayed to be still quite strong, charismatic, and powerful figures. And I think that's not something we see a lot of. Normally, people who have a disability aren't really, you know, put high profile in films. So to be able to do that, not only the speech, but the movement, moving around, getting him into different locations and showing that as being a person who is a celebrity, I think that to do that in a production facility is very, very difficult to do. And they did that really well. You never really felt that he was a person who's disabled. If anything, you felt he was a person who had much more capability, much more potential than many of us normal people. So I think the production quirk, the great thing about production was making Stephen in those situations look, you know, amazing, and someone that you'd want to be like if you had a physical incapacity.
Right. And so, like we already discussed it, that the movie is not about proving scientific theories that Hawking presented, but it's about family, friends, support, the support system that he got from his colleagues. How well do you think this message was delivered through The Theory of Everything?
Very well. I think it was delivered extremely well. The only thing I wasn't particularly happy about, I think, the way it was depicted, was that, you know, when the marriage was coming to an end, it's not working. You know, obviously, Stephen, they'd had children, so you could see him in that capacity as a father, but not as a husband. And I think that, you know, then being with his nurse and then showing that he's been, you know, he's developing a relationship with his nurse, to me, that sort of made it look like, well, perhaps his wife wasn't good enough at caring for him, whereas his nurse was very good at caring for him, and maybe that's why the relationship developed from there. So I think that's the only side of, you know, the film for me that I thought, you know, the way it depicted it was very much like, well, the wife maybe is not doing it, but the nurse is a better companion. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely.
Jean, it was wonderful having you for a discussion on this beautiful movie. Thank you very much for joining us.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Nasheen, and see you soon. Have a lovely day.
Sure. Thank you. You too. That was Jean-Paul reviewing The Theory of Everything. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.